Welcome back to the new Friends and Foe major update for Monster Train. There are quite a few new stuff to talk about, so I will try to go over each one fairly quickly but completely and give you my thoughts. Before we jump into all of the new champions, I want to mention that there's a new stat tracker tracking all of the new records that you have set previously and will be setting in the future. Also, gameplay-wise, there's a turn counter in every fight, so you don't have to count the number of turns before expecting the boss on the final phase. Moreover, when starting a new run, the new pop-up shows all of the major bosses that you will be encountering instead of just it showing the Serif like before. This is a really nice change, and this information is not hidden anymore. Well, rip my did you know video, right? So that's all the gameplay changes. Now let's dive into the most anticipated new update, the 5 new champions. First up is Hellhorn, the most generic class that used to be very simply carried by the Hornbreaker Prince. Now there's the Sharktail Queen. She is more of a supporting champion for an all-out Imp deck. As you will see, many of these new champions fit more towards the supporting role, and it's for other units that you pick up later on to carry the game. Anyways, there are a couple of new keywords here. Rally, it triggers when you play a unit on this floor, and on turn, it triggers on this unit's turn. Now she is probably best used in conjunction with Imps. Heck, even her starting card is an Imp. If you don't go Imps, 2 of her upgrade paths are simply useless. Her royalty upgrade path can be compared to the Glutton Penumbra. The Glutton path has always been too slow, so is the royalty path. The first few turns in the fights are very crucial, and it's not advantageous to try to stack a Sharktail Queen from 5 attack. On top of that, the Glutton path can gain health, while the royalty path is only attack. Well, you can put the units in front of the queen, but still, eating morsels and doing damage is still much better than stacking them. So 4 stars for both the Incarnate and Imperialist path, and 2 stars for the royalty path. Incarnate and Imperialist paths have great synergies together, and it's much better if Sharktail Queen can somehow gain quick, so her turn is before the enemy's turn to trigger her on turn effect first. She also gains a lot of health from the Imperialist path, so she can act as a tank as well. As for the royalty path, most of the other stacking effects are either permanent or require specific combos. Royalty would be great in a highlight video, but not good enough to be picked normally in normal runs compared to Incarnate or Imperialist. Next is Awoken. The Sentient is a tank that has supporting capabilities, but normally she is used just as a tank. Widenton or Veldington, however, seems like a backline support with some carry capabilities if you combine the upgrade path. He is the only card outside of Stygian that has an incant trigger. So if you combine him with Stygian as your ally clan, you can take advantage of all the spell casting. Apart from that, Strangler plus Predator can quickly turn this guy into a killing machine by having quick, sweep, and even multi-strike. The cherry on top is that his starting card is Root Seeds that apply +2 attack and draw +1. This is very synergistic, especially with the Predator pass having multi-strike. As usual, the overstack floor strategy is going to be more insane if every single unit on that floor has quick. Overall, I give Thornlord and Strangler 4 stars and Predator 5 stars. It's very advantageous to mix and match his upgrades because all of them are very synergistic with each other, especially Predator, simply because of the enchant buff to all of your units. Stygian Guard has always been a spell-reliant deck, and Tessis facilitates the process of casting spells as well as having boss damage with her Frostbite path. However, Soul Guard is more of an end result to casting more spells. It doesn't help you cast more spells, nor give you any extra damage. It only comes online after you have casted a number of spells. This playstyle is more emphasized by the Titan channel upgrade path. The phased keyword is cannot attack, cannot be targeted in any way. If you're familiar with Hearthstone, this is similar to Dormant. Only after you have casted 6 spells at level 1 and 12 spells at level 3 can you fully awaken the beast that is Soulguard. Similarly, even though his other upgrade paths don't have the Fates keyword, still, they're only good once Soulguard has enough shard stacks. Overall, Dire Channel gets a 2-star because this path only targets the front enemy unit. I don't know what's the deal with that. Cold Channel gets a 3-star because despite it being able to target the backline, it still requires time to stack up the shards, and it will be several turns later when he can catch up to the levels of Thesis. Last but not least, we have Titan Channel at 5 stars. I'm debating between 4 and 5, but I think if you build your deck spell heavy right from the get-go, right from the beginning of the run, it's very realistic to cast 12 spells in 2 turns. Then there is plenty of time to put multi-strike, quick, trample or buffs on your Soulguard afterwards. The Forgotten Name starter card that comes with Soulguard synergizes quite well since it is 0 cost and potentially can discard an offering card. Normally, I don't like unreliably discarding cards, but if it also powers up Soulguard, maybe it's worth keeping than to purge it. The last 2 champions are very interesting and very unique. First, we have Primordium. Buffet is a keyword that says each stack of buffet allows a unit to be eaten an additional time. If I'm interpreting this correctly, and I think this is the intention of the developer, Primordium gets eaten once per turn, but instead of disappearing, he remains on the field but gets his buffet stack decreased by 1. Instead of something like the Shroud Spike that he's eaten the number of buffet stacks he has in one single turn. So as for his different upgrade paths, Superfood and Storeward Stack are very good paths to take since constantly gaining damage shield and gaining them for multiple turns is simply great. However, some gorge units such as the Crucible Collector doesn't really care about the damage shields, so it might be better to pick up the Aggressive Edible to increase the attack on the Crucible Collector to deal more damage. Overall, Superfood is 4 stars, Storeward Stacks is 5 stars, and Aggressive Edible is at 2 stars. Superfood is super nice, but Storeward Stack is a must pick and should be picked all the time before Superfood. Aggressive Edible is just not very enticing since attack is more commonly gained than damage shield. As for the starter card, we have Plink. This seems to be the most OP card in the set. It is on par with other cards such as Ice Storm. If you compare the two, Ice Storm hits 5 times and has the possibility of not hitting the backline enemy, but Plink hits all enemies, so it's guaranteed backline removal. Even in the late game, just upgrade with plus 10 magic power and even holdover, and you can constantly kill backline enemies and gain martial units every single turn. In a clan that doesn't have much backline targeting spells, this starter card just fills that gap right away and is an excellent addition. I think that this card is simply better than Restore in the Awoken clan. Finally, we have Melting Remnant. Regular Flicker has been a really weird unit to get used to playing. Similarly, so is Little Fate. The Firelight and Little Icarus upgrades both are pretty good because the starter card that comes with him is the Primitive Mode. You can definitely bring him back multiple times and constantly buff your units or Little Fate himself. Also for Little Icarus, if the enemy and him dies at the same time, the Slay should still trigger, giving him attack and spikes. As for the Internal Flame upgrade, it's such a new concept to give champions the Ember cost that I'm just gonna give it a wild guess here. It's probably gonna be really good. If he dies twice at rank 3, he will be 165-41, costing 2 Ember. then just put him in the backline and just leave him to carry. So overall, 3 stars for Firelight, 4 stars for Eternal Flame, and 1 star for Little Icarus. I really don't see Little Icarus' path being really good. If he wants to slay, he needs health or armor, but he only starts with 1 health, so it's really difficult to increase that using cards. Even if you can mix and match the upgrades, do you take Firelight and Eternal Flame first, or Little Icarus? If you take Firelight or Eternal Flame on the first upgrade, is it really beneficial to go for +1 attack and spike permanently over the attack and health increase for the other 2 paths? There is a huge potential for a highlight reel from the Little Icarus path. I see the potential being there. The ceiling is really high, but the floor is also really low. So it's extremely difficult to pull off and requires some specific combos. So that's all of the new champions, and we also get 5 new artifacts. Queen's Tail synergizes very well with Imps and is great especially in Shardtail Queen primary clan decks. Emblem of the Exile seems to be quite powerful to keeping your tanks on all floors alive. 5 HP doesn't seem to be a lot, but it's actually a lot since it can happen every single turn. The Kingston Totem is simply made for Soulguard and his starting card. This card would always be happening when you play Soulguard, and so you can always take advantage of the extra Ember to cast more spells. Shadow Box is for mortals only, of course. Are 20 mortals difficult to play? I don't know. I don't know if there's a difference between play and summon in this game or not. What I'm referring to are the morsels summoned by Morsel Master and Shroud Mitosis. If they count, this artifact is insane. If not, then it's just mediocre. Fate's First Blade synergizes really well with the Firelight path. Provided you actually have other ways to give your units burnout, it's possible to give burnout to units that don't have innate burnout. However, you do only lose 1 burnout per turn, so this artifact may not be as strong as it seems. Apart from the new additions, there is a new keyword added to several existing cards. Attuned multiplies the effect of spell power by 5. This change allows some spells that have bad scaling into the late game to stay competitive to their counterparts. After looking at all of the friends, we shall look at the foes too. So far, I only have information on 1 version of Talos and Arcus, so I'll update you when I encounter the other 2 versions of Talos and Arcus. Anyways, Talos the Architect attacks your unit even during the flying phase, so you should take into consideration her damage when playing your tanks. Also, all enemies gain 2 rage upon entering the train, so it's really difficult to set up on the bottom floor. Arcus Darkness Incarnate summons these dark shards on the battlefield that impact interactions happening on that specific floor. Also, at the end of every turn, the previous one dies and he summons a new one. It's very similar to dataless bombs or constructed explosives, so expect a similar mechanic. So there is only 1 of them at all times. To be honest, while other people think that this is a really bad thing to not being able to interact with the shard, I don't think it's that bad. Looming Dark Shard is exactly the same as playing around incant triggers on enemies, and Shattering Dark Shard at max gives you 3 Scorch cards, because at max you kill 3 units on that floor with spells. If you just let your units kill them instead, the shard would die first and then your units would kill the enemies, and that won't trigger the harvest on the Shattering Dark Shard. So there are plenty of ways to play around these shards. And I feel like this is so much easier than the Alabaster Guardians for Fel, and it seems to be much easier than the Rage Fel and the Scourge Fel. Anyways, finally, last but definitely not the least, there is the new Serif, the Patient. This new Serif also attacks your units during the flying phase. He also has Rally plus 5 attack, so try not to summon units on his floor. He also has melee weakness. Similar to spell weakness, melee weakness multiplies the physical damage taken. So you definitely need a really thick tank to protect your backlines. Even though he has all these different perks, I don't think he's that bad. He only has 10 attack as opposed to 10 times 3 for the other Serifs. Of course, like all other Serifs, this Serif also counters a specific deck, and that deck is constantly unit summoning, i.e. Umbra, Melting Remnant, and potentially the Hellhorn Imps. So you should be very careful when playing against him while playing these decks. These are the current new changes. Stay tuned by subscribing for upcoming Friends and Foes gameplay and potential changes to these cards.